Look at your day-to-day life. Just look around your community. What is something that you wish somebody else will fix? And right there is a challenge that you can try to tackle.
This feed addresses the nutritional, affordability, and reliability concerns of the farmers.
A key component of Crystal Water is education. We have trained people to educate and support our customers on how to use the product.
And people think about entrepreneurs as people that are looking for spaceship solutions. No, especially in Africa, where the problems are still basic. Any solution that solves a problem in a way that enables you to have that impact and is commercially sustainable, you are the entrepreneur.
It needs to be a solution for the same old problem, but a different approach, which has to be replicable, scalable, must be easier, faster, and cheaper. That's the only way that it's going to be effectively utilized by their community.
Whether you win the competition or not, you come out of this as you haven't refined your business model for whatever solution you are having for your local community.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's great to have all of you here. I know I've met quite a few of you as we have begun this process. Just a reminder, my name is Maddie. I am the program coordinator for the Global Business School Network, and we are so excited that today is the official launch day for our Africa Business Concept Challenge. This is the second year we are doing this, and we are so excited to have all of you participate. We had 78 teams register from 34 schools and 17 countries all across the continent of Africa, and we are just so excited to get started today. How today is going to work is we will first start off with a few words from one of our sponsors, Tim Mescon at AACSB. He will be followed by our partner organization from Stanford C, Darius Teeter, then Ricky Moore from EM Lyon, and then we will be followed by our platform partner, Peter Martin Holst from Peaks. And then we will jump into our panel discussion led by our CEO, Dan Leclerc, and featuring the following judges: Naredi Adebayo, Peter Bamkley, Joanne Wong-Gilbert, Julianne Shields, and Austin Okiri. We will then close out with some questions and a few reminders. First, we would like to welcome one of the organizations that is sponsoring the first place prize of $5,000 USD for our winning team. Tim Mescon, please unmute yourself, and we welcome you to say a few words.
Hi, greetings to all from AACSB Europe, Middle East, and Africa offices in Amsterdam. AACSB is honored and proud again to support this second annual Africa Business Concept Challenge. As the oldest, largest accreditor of business schools in the world, with over 1,700 members in 106 countries and territories, including 50 terrific business schools across the African continent, AACSB believes that business schools, their professors, staff, and particularly their students can and will continue to be a force for good in the communities we serve. I salute all of you students and professors brave enough to embrace this business concept challenge and wish each of you all the very best. Enjoy the opportunity to compete and engage with other students and professors as each of you pursues your ventures and dreams in the weeks to come. Good luck to all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tim. We are so glad to have you here. At this moment, we would like to welcome Darius Teeter, Executive Director of Stanford Seed. I welcome you to unmute yourself and to say a few words.
Hi, thank you. It's always hard to follow Tim. I'm Darius. As you heard, I work at the Stanford Graduate School of Business for Stanford Seed. And we love this competition because we do something very similar for businesses that have already been established across the African continent. They're trying to figure out how to grow. So first of all, I'm so proud of all of you for jumping in and taking a chance on this. Secondly, I'm a little jealous because honestly, I wish I was just getting out of university and somebody was spurring me to build a team and solve important problems. So think of this as one of the great opportunities and exciting times of your life. The third thing I want to say is, yes, I'm a judge, but mainly I'm a champion. I want all of you guys to succeed, and whether or not you win the competition, pick yourself up and keep going, because if it's not this idea, it'll be the next one. It's the entrepreneur is in here, it's in you. So I wish you best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Darius. And we are going to now pass the torch off to our head mentor. He is also the Professor of Entrepreneurship and Director, MSc in Global Innovation Entrepreneurship at EM Leon Business School. Ricky Moore. Ricky, I invite you to unmute yourself and to say a few words.
Right, thank you, Maddie. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this very exciting event. It's a great honor to be with the team from GBSN and hosting the second challenge. It's a wonderful learning opportunity. It's where great minds come together and you guys will show us what you're able to do to make that wonderful continent of yours a much, much better place. Above all, this experience is meant to be fun learning. You know, we are maybe the little sparks, the little catalysts on your entrepreneurial journeys. You guys are the future of Africa. So our job is to help you make that dream come true. So I hope you'll have a really, really great time. Enjoy the challenge and looking forward to working with you. Thank you, Maddie.
Thank you so much, Ricky. And then finally, I'd like to introduce Peter Martin Holst, who is both the founder and creative director of our competition partner, Peaks. Just a reminder, Peaks is a blended learning platform that allows teachers' roles to shift away from one-way classroom instruction to a more versatile mixed classroom online environment that is accessible to students and teachers alike all over the world. Peter, I welcome you to say a few words.
Thanks a lot, Maddie. And I can lock in with Darius and Ricky from before in saying that this is not only it is not only an entrepreneurship competition, but also a learning journey. And that's exactly what we designed the platform to do. It is on the one hand to train the entrepreneurial mind in the university setting, but also be that a very important test bed for creating great solutions that can build communities and help your community to prosper. And the platform does just that, and we're so proud to be on board for the second time around. And yeah, I hope you guys have a smooth ride on the platform, and I look forward to seeing all the ideas grow and get stronger and better.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter. And now I would like to introduce our CEO of GBSN, Dan Leclerc, who will be leading the panel discussion on the importance of sustainability and social innovation in economic development of Africa. That is a mouthful. It is wonderful that this is the topic that we are discussing this year. He will be accompanied by our amazing judges and panelists, Niredi Adebayo, CEO of White Cleon Limited, Peter Bamkley, Director of Enterprise Development at the Development Center at Pan Atlantic University, Joanne Mongi-Elbert, CEO, Professional Marketing Services Group Limited, and Austin Okiri, founder and vice chairman, Computer Warehouse PLC, and Julian Shields, president and CEO of United States Association for Small Business and Enterprise. I invite all of you to turn on your cameras and turn on your mics. And Dan, I will leave it to you to take it away.
Thanks so much, Maddie, and thanks everyone for the wonderful introductory remarks, which I would like to add my remarks to by simply saying that it's obvious to me that what we're building here with the Africa Business Concept Challenge, as many of you noted, is more than a competition. It's a community, a supportive community for the learning and development of not only students, but I think all of us here will learn. And I want to thank Maddie also for introducing the panel, which I thought I'd spend a little time doing, but I feel like it's in some ways unnecessary for a couple of reasons. You'll get to know them during our conversation this morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are. But also we've posted their bios online at the GBSN website. And I invite you to take a look, because what you'll see is that we have a fantastic panel, in some ways a dream team of people coming together to talk about the topic, which I will not try to repeat word for word. But I've noticed also that I was a little worried, Peter, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us. And so we have all 5 panelists now, and I think we should just get started in this conversation. And I want to start by doing something I don't usually do. And that is I'm going to ask all of our panelists, one by one, to address a single question. Do it in sort of a quick opening round, because this is a question that's intrigued me since I heard it said in another panel about a year ago. One of the panelists in a conversation about entrepreneurship, and in particular social entrepreneurship in Africa, said something like, you know, in Africa, any new business that creates jobs and serves people is a social enterprise. This is what the person said. I noticed at the moment, a couple of panelists nodded their head in agreement, and a couple of panelists shook their head in disagreement. So I'm going to start by posing this question for each of our panelists to address, and then we'll build the conversation from there. And I'd like to start with Nareti, if we will. Nareti, do you agree or disagree with that statement, and why or why not?
Okay, so I'm just going to say that every business that is set up for profit making, or that yields profit, and whether the entrepreneur sets it out as a social enterprise or not, but at least the business that is beneficial to the majority of the people definitely would have something to do with social enterprise. Some businesses contribute positively, to the environment and their ecosystem. So for instance, if it's a recycling company, the recycling company cleans the environment and reduces the carbon footprints, right? And of course, still makes money from that, same as the telecommunications company. So for instance, you have a baby and then you need to talk to your grandparents. Those days it was really difficult to do that, but now you just pick a call and say, oh, mom, I have a baby, and so it's reduced, the distances and democratizes everything for the people. So what do I call that? Social enterprise, right? So I believe that day in, day out, we begin to create social enterprise, even when we're not thinking directly that it might be, So I believe that that's where I'm going to put it. Whether yes or no, I don't know, but I just believe that as long as it's beneficial to both the people, the government, and also to the company, definitely it will be a social enterprise.
Very good start, Nareti. I'm wondering if I could pick on a panelist that might disagree first. Peter, you seem anxious to talk. I'm going to pick on you. Whether you agree or disagree is not relevant, but you seem anxious to contribute right after Nareti. So please, Peter.
No, I actually disagree. That's why I wanted to say this right away. I think it's a misnomer to believe that all or most startups coming out of Africa are social enterprise. Social enterprise exists across the world, and it's different from for-profit. Now, the important thing to note is that in every enterprise venture, there is an opportunity recognition and there is a value creation. Now, that value creation could lead to profit, which is for profit, or it could lead to some kind of social agenda thing. Now, to generalize, especially in academic pursuits, the way you have put it, it's a big problem. Now, if you look at the last 3 years, the top 5 companies in Africa that have become unicorns, they are not social enterprise at all, but they do offer value in solving certain problems that we have, but that doesn't make them. So they create value, but they are definitely not social enterprise. I will leave it at that so that others can jump in. Thank you.
I feel like I should know that list. So I feel a little embarrassed to ask that question, but Peter, why are those 5 companies definitely not social enterprises?
Well, I think Austin should take this. One that is a Wave, it's a payment company. What's the name of this company now?
Jamea?
No, not Jamea.
Yeah.
Paystack.
Paystack is one, but not Paystack. It's not yet.
Flutterwave.
Wave, sorry?
Flutterwave.
M-Pesa, Wave, those ones.
No, the Wave one, sorry. Flutterwave. Flutterwave is the right one. Now, Flutterwave is into payment system and everything. Yes, it solves problem, and indeed, a lot of my small businesses have benefited from that. But these guys are making real money. It's not for free, and it's not social in any way. They are making good money. InterSwitch is one of them. They are making good money. It's not social enterprise at all. And there are about maybe 3 more.
Interesting. I see we're gaining clarity on this question, which is exactly what I expected. This is not an area where there's a lot of clarity, is it? And I like what I'm hearing so far. Maybe if I could add a point, I'm involved with an initiative on purposeful companies. And one definition I've heard is that a purposeful company is one that solves problems of people and planet profitably, right? So again, mixing the two is interesting. They add a little component to that said, and not profiting from creating problems for people and planet. Julianne, you want to step in, I see. So please.
Well, I agree. Can you hear me okay? It's kind of a strange room.
You're mute.
Well, we're a little low on the volume.
Okay. Is this any better?
A little better, but not still good enough, I think.
How about now?
That's
Is that
good.
better? Okay.
That is
all right.
great.
Very good. So I would tend to agree that the intent or the purpose or mission of the organization, of the company, if it's going to be a social enterprise, does need to say this is a humanitarian problem or a social problem that we're trying to deal with. Just being a business or a venture that treats its employees humanely or pays them or whatever, that doesn't make it a social enterprise in my mind. So I would agree with Peter. And at the same time, there are definitely things with Naretti that I feel was absolutely on point. They need to be solving a problem for people. That's what makes them entrepreneurs. But it's that purpose and that mission that is a stated emphasis of what the organization and the enterprise is trying to do that really identifies, is this a social venture or is this something where they're really trying to maximize profit? And somebody said profiting on the problems that it creates. Yeah, like that's a really key point too.
Yeah. Thanks, Julianne. That was in part a great summary of what we've talked about so far. Austin.
Now I can't hear you, by the way.
Oh no, we're going to switch back and forth with the headphones, perhaps, Julianne. Austin, how about you? And then we'll turn to Joanne.
Yeah, so let me add 2 words to qualify this. And those 2 words are legitimate enterprise, and the second word is sustainable social enterprise. So I have a problem if the enterprise is providing social impact but not legitimate. I also do have a problem with where that social enterprise is perpetually on a feeding bottle of aid. So once the aid dries up, then the community is left on their own. So it has to be sustainable. But having said that, in the context of Africa, it's difficult to see any organization that is providing jobs which enhance shared prosperity, jobs which bring people out of poverty, jobs which give people self-esteem and able to fish rather than to be given fish, not to be classified as solving a social problem. It is solving a social problem, even if they are making profits, even if they are making tons of profits, insofar as they are solving problems in the environment. So Peter talked about Flutterwave and payment systems and the tons of money they are making. But I will also challenge Peter and say that without an efficient payment system, even the bottom of the pyramid is challenged, because they are the ones that find it extremely difficult to go to the bank or the ATM to withdraw money in order to pay for services that put food on the table. So that payment solution, be it Flutterwave, be it Paystack, be it Bills and Pay from CWG PLC, is solving a social problem. So it's a social enterprise, insofar as it's legitimate and is sustainable.
Thanks for that. I like this piece about legitimacy. I don't want to extend this part of the conversation too far, but I want to provide an opportunity to go back around the table for anybody that now, in light of other comments, wants to say anything.
I'm yet to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello.
That's actually what I thought. And then I went back and I wrote notes from you. And maybe it was the pre-conversation, but I had wrote a note that you had said something, and I thought it was attributable to this because it relates. But please, Joanne, I thought so.
No, thank you, Dan. I think it's just that the participants have the panelists have spoken very well, but I do have my 2 cents, and I fall closer to Peter, but my definition is slightly different, because I look at it from the fact of you are a social enterprise because you say you are a social enterprise, you state it. Now, a lot of social enterprises are accidental social enterprises. So I think the definition and the labeling has to come from a place of, are you accidental or are you deliberately a social enterprise? Now, if I'm to give a specific example, I will use the micro lending or the betting platforms across Africa. So you're betting, you're calling the poorest of the poor to bet, and this money is going into the deepest of deep pockets. So is that a social enterprise when they take the profits and then do a CSR in sports, in the arts, in the slums? It doesn't make them a social enterprise. So yes, they're providing job. Yes, they're doing great stuff, but hey, they're not a social enterprise. I believe that a social enterprise must have at its heart, at its ethos, the concern for the society, for the environment, for youth, for minorities, for women, and must be to some element pro-poor as a stated ethos, not as an accidental ethos. So I completely differ from the fact that you could be a social enterprise simply because you accidentally created jobs in your pursuit to make money. What is driving you? So that is my submission.
Well, thanks for that, Joanne, and thanks for pointing out that we didn't come back to you, because your contribution has been great already. I want to maybe play it back to the group. Let's take a oil and gas company? And I just want a yes or a no, right? So a new company has just been formed and its foundation is based on fossil fuels. Right. So I think I know what you're going to say, Joe. Right? I think I know what you're going to say, Peter, but others, is this the kind of, for example, new business idea that we'd like to see in the Africa Business Concept Challenge? Is this a socially beneficial company, regardless of whether we call it a social enterprise? Yes or no?
No.
Nareti?
Honestly, I just feel, whether it's yes or no, is that a business that is beneficial to both the people, to the government, contributes to the government, and also to the company, that would be my own definition of a social enterprise. I said the word carefully, beneficial to the people, to the government, and to the company itself. Whether it's accidental, whatever it is, that's what I believe. It's a social enterprise. As long as the people are benefiting from it, the government is benefiting from it, and the company is making its profit. But it has to be beneficial, not to the detriment of the poor or to cause any harm in the society.
Got it. Got it. This is a very interesting conversation. And I'd like to stay with you for just a second, Nareti, because you're in the HR business. If I understand correctly, you have, 7,000 people working across both Nigeria and Ghana. So you're really engaged with talent. And if there's anything that defines GBSN, it's the development of talent, right?
Absolutely.
For example, Africa. How important is this, if you could start this conversation, is talent? What are the challenges related to talent as it relates to social innovation and development? We don't have to stick with social entrepreneurship. I think, for example, when we come back to Peter, a big part of what they do is social innovation, entrepreneurship, perhaps. Nareti, you want to start us in this conversation about talent?
Okay, I believe that one of the greatest challenges that we have is the fact that we do not have enough business hubs, innovation hubs, for instance. I believe that the whole of Africa, we have less than 700, and that is hardly enough for a population of over 1 billion. And there is so much abundance of talent in the continent, And again, we have seen that quite a lot of governmental interference and policies sometimes may mean well for the private sector or for the business, but the implementation may be bad, may not be as great. And I will give you an example. And so in Nigeria, you have the government supporting SMEs and the rest of it. And of course, we've seen the rise of SMEs in the last 5 years in Nigeria. But a lot of the funds that were earmarked for SMEs in Nigeria, we understand from insinuations, are mostly given to the big companies, all right? And so if you have to think of it, these smaller companies cannot do much more than their limitations, because again, if you don't have the capacity to have the funds that are needed, for the businesses, then they are probably unable to grow at the level that is expected. Now, it will be a case of a good policy that has a bad implementation, right? So again, those are some of the challenges. And then you look at the cultural bias as well. There are still places in our continent where women, entrepreneurs, cannot buy properties or buy lands on their own because they have to use either their parents' names or their husband's names to do that, because it's perceived that as a woman, that cannot be done. Again, we have seen governments in various places who have tried to, close this impediment, but we still see practically that is still happening. So again, we have the cultural bias, as impediments to, to growing the talents, we have in Africa. So again, there are so many things that we need to do to ensure that we have a lot of collaboration, like I said, within the entrepreneurs and also the, the business schools as well, so they can develop this pool of talents that we have. Another thing I'd like to mention real quick, it's the collaboration by experienced entrepreneurs who should tell their stories. As Africans, we should tell our stories. We should talk about our challenges, our failures, and our successes. Take this to the classroom and ensure that the young aspiring entrepreneurs would truly understand what truly happens in businesses. Again, it's also for us to be able to build more vocational schools, for instance, more specialized schools. I remember growing up, we had several technical colleges of education who is specialized at training teachers for schools. You have the training centers and the tech centers where you can train artisans, who also understand entrepreneurship. We do not have all of that anymore. And this poses a lot of challenges, in developing the right talents for the society. I'll just stop here a little bit.
Thank you, Narendra. And I know you've spent time as a facilitator in the Enterprise Development Center that Peter helped start and has run for how long has it been, Peter, now since you've founded the EDC? Oh, you're still on mute.
20 years now.
Wow, 2 decades. That's amazing. And what an amazing space and group of people that you've assembled. Can you continue with Naretti's comments and in particular talk more about the role of social innovation entrepreneurship? Because I think if I understand correctly, a lot of your work is not just about starting, but accelerating the development of business and really making sure that they could scale up with vis-a-vis the talent.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dan. I think part of the reasons why we established EDC is precisely because of that. We see that the small businesses across the continent, they play on the fringes. And if you take Nigeria as an example, we have about 43 million MSMEs in Nigeria. And out of that 43 million, 99.8 or 9% of it, they are micro, employing 1 or 2 or 3, 5 people. Now, and that is the problem, that if they continue to play on the fringes, they cannot contribute positively to the GDP of their country, of the continent. Yes, they may solve the problem of job creation. 1 or 2 people are employed. But imagine if we can create a system where a micro company that employs 1 person is able to employ additional 1 or 2, automatically that 40 or so million of them turns to 80 million immediately. And that for me, it is the key to unlocking prosperity in Africa, unlocking job creation and all the rest of them. And until we get that right, it is almost impossible. So anything that we are doing, if it does not create 1 additional job, then it is useless. If you are a big company and you already have 300 people, if you create 10 or 20 jobs, that is significantly small. And so that's why I'm not looking at the large companies. I'm looking at micro and small, doubling their capacity. Now, how do we do that? First, you build their capacity not as entrepreneurs, but as a small institution. And so you take the SME, the owner, you take 1 or 2 or 3 of the staff, and you build the way in which they think. You change their business model. When you do that, they will fly. They will just fly. So when the owner is not there, the staff can think wild and think a bit more out of the space or out of the box, and they can do wonders. That is the kind of that kind of innovation that we're looking at. Now, the other thing is that innovation comes from many sources, but the one that I have seen that is really, really important is innovations that come from the grassroots. And so as a top CEO, I may not even see it. But when the ordinary people see that there is a problem here, which they turn into opportunity, then they resolve it, that becomes a winner. So if you take M-Pesa, for instance, that's how M-Pesa grew. People could not transfer money, they could not move money within that lower rank. And then that innovation came. Today, not only M-Pesa, you come to Nigeria, there's mobile money everywhere across the continent, and that is changing the way in which we behave, the way in which we do things. You now have micro insurance, micro this, micro that, out of that small innovation that came to be. So for me, it is about helping people to think differently, change their business model, and say to them, what can you do digitally to be able to scale up? And that's why today we're having small businesses. When the pandemic struck, we did a survey. 7% of the survey sample, it did not affect them. In fact, they thrived. They thrived within pandemic. And why did they thrive? Because they had embedded digital solutions into their process. And so all we need to do is also teach all this. Today, if you go to the micro guy, he has a small, we call it MPOS, mobile POS. So the guy can take the money, he can go straight to the bank. So many little things. Somebody can order by phone, by text. We need to encourage all of this. That's how we're going to make the change in Africa. Let me stop here.
I think that's a great segue. I was going to switch over to Julianne, but Julianne, if I could press pause with you for a second, because this seems like a great opportunity for Austin to step in. Austin, in his work with technology, and I'm curious, Austin, what do you think about the latter part of what Peter said, and digital being a critical enabler, and perhaps you could fit that into your 5 forces, and talk a little bit about talent at the same time. Austin, thoughts about that?
Yes, Dan. So first, let me set this record straight. You talked about, I'll take 2 seconds on that, the hydrocarbon company, is it a social enterprise or not? Insofar as they lay down guidelines to go towards renewable, insofar as they're paying their carbon tax and therefore not flaring. So don't forget that we used to get energy from killing whales and burning log. And we said, well, that's not efficient. Rather, let's mine the hydrocarbons and use it to generate energy. So compared to killing whales, it was miles of advancement. Today, we've gotten to a point where, because of global warming, it's not sustainable. It's the same companies that will transform to the renewable companies of the future, but we must make sure that we coerce them in that direction. They must pay the carbon tax. They have to have a blueprint for transiting to renewable energy, but you can't punish them for solving past problems, because those solutions to those past problems today will not be taking us into the future. That aside, let's talk about talent. And I'll relate it to the 5 forces model. So the 5 forces model for transformation, which I developed, speaks about 1, a vision we can believe in. 2, a team which can deliver that vision. 3, do they have resources? 4, do we have sufficient time to deliver that vision? And 5, do they have resolve? The biggest of it being the team. That is why the talent is important. The issue is the talent is changing due to the technology advancements that we have. So myself, Peter is EDC, and he's EDC. He does nothing but EDC. Peter's son, on the other hand, is going to sell slices of his time and talent not just to one company like Peter, who is rooted at EDC, but to plethora of companies. So he is not limited by time and space. And therefore, that new talent becomes elusive to companies which have the old mindset that Austin works for me. Industry has to adjust to this concept of the talent which we call the enabler. Peter and I, we are custodians. We are custodians of the company we work for. We champion the vision of that company, the culture of that company, the purpose of that company, and the culture of that company. My son and Peter's son, they themselves are an institution unto themselves, be they one man or a group of few people that have come together. Their office is not anywhere. It's wherever they can find a computer and broadband. They work from Starbucks. They work from home. And their allegiance is to their talent honing and to delivering the output for which they are paid that gives value to the companies they work for. So when we say there's no talent, it doesn't mean that people have suddenly stopped giving birth and the population has shrunk. No, it just means that the talent has been repositioned or repurposed in a manner that many companies are not taking advantage of. So you can't say that Austin is my staff, but you can say that Austin is delivering this part of my project for me. This is what we've not gotten right. And once we get it right through from the universities. Because now, if you see what Apple did, Apple broke the album into songs through iTunes. So you don't have to buy the whole album for that beautiful song that you want to listen to. You can pick and choose songs and create your own playlist. In similar manner, Dan, GBS and AACSB need to look at the university system and see how you can break the courses so that the young people will pick and choose what they need to learn and be accredited to put them in good stead for what they want to do in their work. So right now we're training people to join ExxonMobil or Coca-Cola. We have accounting. But guess what? My son and Peter's son want to do accounting, but they also want to do analytics, which comes from the technology department. They should be free to choose those courses, put them together. Because if we don't do that, we'll continue to see companies like Google, like ExxonMobil, setting up their own mini MBAs where they impact their people and then employ the ones they want to employ. And that's indictment on the education system. Sorry, take a bit long. I have more to add, but let me stop there. Dan, you're mute.
That's happened to me. I want to be quiet during the time everyone else is speaking, but I'm going back and forth from mute. I think that's great, Austin. In fact, it gives us an opportunity to I'm glad we paused with you, Julian. At the USASB, I want to make sure I get this right, the United States Association for Small Business and Entrepreneurship, which you lead, you've been advancing entrepreneurship education efforts for years, decades. How long's it been? How long has USASB?
Years. Yeah, 41 years actually, yeah.
And so you really have your finger on the pulse of what's happening with entrepreneurship education. And please, if you will, continue with Austin's discussion. Do you agree that perhaps we haven't made that shift well enough in universities? Where are the opportunities?
You know, I think that I'm going to kind of blend some of what Austin was getting at along with what Peter was identifying as opportunities, because I think that that's really relevant to this particular challenge event, is that yes, a lot of colleges have now looked at how do we put many of these things that we're teaching in classes into a very practical perspective or an impactful perspective. And AACSB is, you know, definitely hitting hard on impact right now for business schools too. And so when we talk now about entrepreneurship education, we think of it as a very muscular thing to teach. It's not just good enough to read about it, take tests on it. You have to practice it. And here's where what Peter was talking about was very exciting to me because there's this intersection. What do students in college know? What are they experts at in college? And then how do you kind of start to transition some things that they do know into some impactful projects and programs? And that's the intersection of what you guys are trying to do here with the Africa Business Concept Challenge is what students know now, what they're experts at with regards to entrepreneurship is some of the frameworks, lean startup, different business model canvas activities, channels of marketing, social enterprise concepts. These are the things that they're learning in their college classes and in their college experiences. And to now think about what are some of those teaching and learning opportunities and concepts that might be able to be applied within SMEs in different aspects, right? They have to think about the audience, they have to think about who's there, but it's a pretty fantastic way of saying, what are you learning in your classes from your professors? How can you think about applying some of those things that you already know into a way that, man, if you could spark knowledge and spark ideas with one or two, business with one or two employees and double that, it's fascinating to me. And so I think that there are some good things that are happening here. So that was my kind of aha. I was getting pretty excited and I just had to share that.
Thanks, Julian. Now, Joanne, you've been there, right? You're founder and you're CEO of Professional Marketing Services. You employ, I think, more than 10,000 people at the moment. So the scale, this growth piece must have been very important to you. How much of what we've talked about in terms of talent and in the marketing space, for example, seems right to you? Where are there gaps? Where do you see opportunity? I would love to hear your thoughts about what Austin said about both his and Peter's children and the kind of work they do professionally and how that fits into your model.
Thank you very much. And I would say that their children are my employees because the average age in the organization is basically between 21 and 27. So I'm really the outlier on the really outer spectrum. And so you find that it's a completely new breed of talent, very innovative, very daring. And I believe that the one thing that is lacking and what is happening, especially with this competition, is access for them to get into mentors where they can learn first and foremost to think big, to create businesses that are scalable, replicable, and that do not rely on them as an individual for the business to keep going. Because I find a lot of the time, the entrepreneur really is the business. So building businesses that do not need the entrepreneur to be personally present for the business to thrive. They set the vision, and after they've set the vision can be replicated because the systems and processes are put in place. I believe very much in small businesses. I myself grew from being a micro enterprise, and I think following through from being a micro enterprise to becoming a small business and then going to medium size and then growing to large is really something that we need to focus on, because I want to go back to what Peter said in terms of focusing on the small enterprise. If you grow the small enterprises, they're the ones that becomes medium. And when they become medium, they've already been tested. They've already proven that they've got what it takes to grow a business. So thereafter now, in steps the next need, and that's really the need for them to get the technical skills that they will require to grow. It's very, very difficult to transition from a small business to a big business. You have to do a lot of mindset shifting. And if without hand holding, it's almost impossible. Without training, it's almost impossible for you to sustainably maintain success of a business. So that's very important. And I think that's the next step, because with access to information, access to markets, you must digitize. And then after that, you must have access to finance, because if you don't have the resources to scale up or to establish businesses across regions, then you're stuck. You will never be the big boy, or big girl for that matter. And I think the one area that is also critically important is getting the mentors and the coaches, people who have walked this path before and can handhold the entrepreneur so that they don't make as many mistakes as they would without that. It's almost akin to it being a franchise model. But in this case, they're just learning from somebody who's done that before and knows a little bit on how to avoid some of the pitfalls. I would say in Africa, we really do need to celebrate our successful entrepreneurs a lot more. It's not as easy for the young people to find people that they need to emulate. And so I think it's important for us to showcase the success stories from across Africa. Everybody needs to see somebody that they resonate with, that they can mirror, that can mentor them, even if it is digitally, virtually, by even just reading their blogs or websites or Twitter, you know, it is inspirational, and listening to such talks. I want to finish by saying that, you know, where I come from, we have a story that the old man, when he goes to cross the river, finds it very difficult despite the raging water, very easy despite the raging water, courtesy of his experience. But it is the wise old man who not only crosses the river, but also builds a bridge, not for himself, but for the young man behind him who will not know how to ford that bridge. And I think this is what we need to do as the people in this room. Thank you.
Well, that's amazing, Joanne. Thanks for that story, but also for bringing up other parts of the challenge. I think, you know, we call it a challenge because it's a competition, but in many ways, we want to help students to understand and be able to navigate the challenges they'll face as young entrepreneurs building businesses. So thanks so much for that. But you've also done something else, and that is you've started, we're going to circle back to you, don't misunderstand this, but one of the things you've done is you've started to answer the question that I'd like to ask everyone before we close to address, and that is, if you had one piece of advice for the participants in our challenge. I've heard a lot, by the way, one of the things that's really cool about this is that we have students from 46 different schools in 17 countries participating. I'm really excited about that. So we've learned a lot about what schools can do, what we can do to support. But now I want to shift gears and just give each one of you a minute to tell us one piece of advice you offer for the teams that are building these concepts over the course of the next several weeks. And any other closing remarks you'd like to offer at the same time will be appreciated. So let's start with, let's kind of flip the order a little bit, just so it doesn't seem like we're doing the same thing. Julianne, would you mind starting us off?
Absolutely. I would say my advice is don't assume and ask. Like ask, talk to as many people as possible, and don't assume that you know what you're doing. That's what I do. I don't assume I know anything. I ask. So that would be my advice.
Great. Thank you, Julianne. Austin.
I think the three things I will advise our people, the upcoming entrepreneurs, are: one, willpower. Learn everything about your area. Learn to unlearn and relearn, because things are they're dynamic and they'll change always. Two is willpower. Have that resolve where everybody believes you should give up. Just like Thomas Edison, you say, let me try once more. You fall down 7 times, get up 8. And the last one is weight power. It speaks to patience. Don't be in a rush to eat your seed. Plant your seed, let it grow into fruit, and then harvest your fruit. Many of them are just too eager to raise funds, even when they are not ready for it.
I love those powers, Austin, especially the weight power, and the idea that we can build something even greater if we're patient and focused, and we have grit, as we say, is one of your other powers. Nareti. Oh, you're still muted, Nareti.
Okay, thank you. I will advise that they work as a team. They need to understand each other, so the group must have cohesion. And they have to, like you rightly said, learn and relearn and unlearn. They should not be afraid to make mistakes, because it's a catalyst to success. Okay. And likely, I just want to say that they need to understand the problem. They need to understand the problem they have identified. They truly need to, and they should consult widely as well. Those would be my advice.
Thank you, Nareti. And as the GBS team will know, I'm a big proponent of the problem framing that you just mentioned. Unless you really understand the problem and are able to frame it in a way that enables solutions, I think that's key. And that's the first step in our challenge, right? Teams. Oh, did we lose somebody? We lost Austin there. Peter, your turn.
Okay, all right. So I'm not going to mention everything that they've said, and I think it's correct. But Joanne actually started me off on a framework which I had developed several years back around what makes or what constrains small businesses not to grow. And I want them to reflect about it. I put it in a framework called misfit. It's only in the last 2 or 3 years that I added S to it. That's why the S is small. But it used to be 6 before, now it's 7. And the acronym stands for lack of access to market. So whatever they are thinking, they should be thinking of market. They should not think about the operations first. It's the market. Where am I going to sell this to? Who is going to buy this? That is going to open up a lot of things for them once they can identify the market. Secondly, infrastructure is a big challenge in Africa today. If they can crack that nut, or they can look for ways in which they can lower their infrastructural cost in whatever they are doing, that is going to make them a bit more competitive than others. Then the S is support services. This is what all of this is about. This is what we are set up to do. Whether it is building their capacity, whether it is handholding them, whether it is listening to more people more broadly, it's around support services. They need to embrace it because that's going to make a big difference to them. F is where everybody goes first, which is the finance. But I say to people, slow down, start with all those ones, but F, after all the innovation, of course, financing must come into play. The second I is information, and I'm glad Joanne also mentioned that. Lack of access to information makes organization to die. So it's important. Whether you go to Julianne, they're able to tell you this is something around tax court, this is how you can do this. That kind of information can be a life changer for you. So they need to open up. T, of course, used to be a problem, but now it's a game changer. Technology. I talked about that. In fact, one of my junior friends or associates told me 5 years ago that in 5 years, any company that is not a tech company or tech-enabled is on its way to dying. Today, I can confirm to you that EDC of 5 years ago is now at least 60–70% tech-enabled. Otherwise, there'll be trouble. And then the last one, which is S, is security. This never used to be in the mix of things. But now I introduce it because once there is insecurity, every other thing fails, and is the big one. Maybe that S should be a bigger S. That's what I would like them to reflect on as they go through this beyond what everybody has said. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Peter, for all of the misfit, right? And a way to remember it. Thank you so much. Now, Joanne, you have the final word today. Words of advice that maybe build on what you said earlier, or just final remarks, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think a lot has been said. So in closing, I'll just say that first and foremost to the teams, if you're looking for somebody to help you and to guide you, go to the person you most fear to go to, especially when you respect them and you know they're very good at what they do. Usually people in those places are very happy to help, and the advice they give you is invaluable. The second thing I'll say is that you're not married to the current solution. So be ready to be flexible and to pivot, listen. And then whenever it is that you find that what you have done isn't working, success is failure turned inside out. Just turn it inside out and basically get a new way of doing things. You will still get to it as long as you framed your problem correctly. And with that, I will say thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Joanne, Nareti, and Peter. And we did lose Austin and Julianne. I think they had to run to another meeting. I apologize, we're just a couple of minutes over time here, but thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us as we kick off the 2022 version of the Africa Business Concept Challenge. Turning it back to Nicole or Maddie. Nicole, there you go.
Just closing us up today, a few reminders. So I know some of you have had issues logging onto Peak, so please check your inbox, make sure you check the spam folder to get the invitation to set up your login. If you haven't received it, please email us. And also remember to finalize your problem statements and upload your team profiles to phase 1 since the deadline is today at 5 p.m. Eastern. So with that, last reminder on Localize, please make sure to follow the main channel. That's where we post all of the competition updates. So it'll be important to be following that as well. Thank you so much to all of our judges and our panelists and to Maddie, everyone on the call. The chat was really active throughout the entire time. This is just the start. So with that, I'm going to replay the video we played earlier since a lot of you were not on yet when we played it. So good luck and we'll see you soon.
Look at your day-to-day life. Just look around your community. What is something that you wish somebody else will fix? And right there is a challenge that you can try to tackle.
This feed addresses the nutritional, affordability, and reliability concerns of the farmers.
A key component of Chrysler Water is education. We have trained people to educate and support our customers on how to use the product.
And people think about entrepreneurs as people that are looking for spaceship solutions. No, especially in Africa, where the problems are still basic. Any solution that solves a problem in a way that enables you to have that impact and is commercially sustainable, you are the entrepreneur.
It needs to be a solution for the same old problem, but a different approach, which has to be replicable, scalable, must be easier, faster, and cheaper. That's the only way that it's going to be effectively utilized by their community.
Whether you win the competition or not, you come out of this as you haven't refined your business model for whatever solution you're having for your local community.